Okay, let's unpack this. We all know that Paramount logo, right? But recently, its parent company, Paramount Global, hit the news for something else entirely.
Yeah, that $16 million settlement with Donald Trump.
Exactly. And almost immediately, you had Democratic lawmakers just piling on, some calling it like bribery in plain sight. Pretty strong words.
Very strong. It definitely grabs your attention.
So that's our mission today. We're going to do a deep dive into the source material you shared, kind of peel back the layers on this Paramount thing, and then look at some similar claims involving law firms.
Right.
What we really want to get to is that line, the often fuzzy line between what feels wrong, maybe corrupt, and what actually counts as criminal bribery under the law.
And it's such a crucial distinction, isn't it? Because, yeah, things can definitely look bad or feel corrupt in the public eye.
For sure.
But the legal definition of criminal bribery, it's actually very specific. It's much narrower than a lot of people think. We'll dig into what the law actually requires based on the experts in your sources.
Okay, so let's start right there with the Paramount settlement itself. Yeah. So Paramount Global, they own CBS, paid out $16 million.
A significant sum.
Yeah, to settle a lawsuit Trump had filed against CBS and Paramount. His claim was basically that 60 Minutes messed up an interview edit with Kamala Harris, and that hurt his election chances somehow.
Which was an interesting claim to begin with.
Right, and the political reaction was, well, immediate and pretty fierce. You had Senator Elizabeth Warren saying, quote, "This could be bribery in plain sight."
Didn't hold back there.
Not at all. And Senator Ron Wyden over on X just flat out said, Paramount just paid Trump a bribe for merger approval. He even talked about federal charges if Democrats regain power.
Wow, okay. So really doubling down.
Yeah, and Bernie Sanders also raising red flags. It's easy to get caught up in that, the strength of those accusations.
Absolutely. But then you step back and look at the legal side.
And that's where it gets complicated.
Exactly. When you actually put these claims under, like, a legal microscope, a lot of the experts are pretty skeptical that it meets the high bar for criminal bribery.
Okay.
Randall Eliason, he's a law professor, former federal prosecutor. He put it well. He said something like, a lot of these things have a bribey feel to them, but crucially, the term corruption is far broader than the term criminal bribery.
That makes sense. Corruption feels broader.
It really does. And the big hurdle here is proving intent. For a criminal bribery charge to actually stick, prosecutors need hard evidence. They need proof of an explicit quid pro quo agreement.
So quid pro quo, like a direct exchange.
Precisely. It's not enough that money changed hands around the same time something else happened. You'd have to show that Paramount executives actually negotiated with Trump. That they said, essentially, we'll give this money to your library if you make sure the FCC approves our merger with Skydance. That kind of direct link.
And just the timing isn't enough.
Nope. As Eliason pointed out, just the coincidence of timing is not enough. Proving that explicit deal is often the hardest part in these cases. You need more than just circumstance.
And adding another layer here, Paramount's own lawyers, initially, they called Trump's lawsuit, what was it, an affront to the First Amendment.
Right, and without basis in law for fact, strong words from their side, too, initially.
Yeah. And it's also worth noting, Paramount didn't apologize to Trump as part of this settlement deal.
Which, again, complicates the narrative of a simple payoff, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really shows that gap between the political talk and the strict evidence needed for criminal law. John Keller, he used to be the acting chief of the Justice Department's Public Integrity Section, so he knows this stuff. He basically said these public calls for a federal investigation seem more political than substantive.
So, more about the politics than a likely criminal case.
That seems to be his assessment, yeah.
Yeah.
It shows how legal reality can be quite different from how things look or feel publicly.
Okay, so the Paramount case, high bar legally. Let's shift gears a bit. There were these other accusations earlier this year, right? A group of House Democrats raised concerns about Trump and some alleged deals with major law firms. 9 of them, I think.
That's right, yeah. Another situation raising eyebrows.
And the claim there was that these firms were giving almost $1 billion in free legal work for causes Trump supported.
That was the allegation, yes. A staggering amount, nearly $1 billion.
And the alleged quid pro quo. In return, these firms would supposedly dodge executive orders that might hurt them or their clients.
Exactly. That was the arrangement Democrats were pointing to.
And they didn't just raise concerns, did they? I think 16 House Democrats actually sent letters.
They did.
Saying they believe these deals may violate several state and federal criminal laws. They specifically mentioned bribery, extortion, fraud.
Yeah, they threw the book at it, legally speaking, in their letters. But again, when you talk to legal experts,
It's a different picture.
somewhat, yeah. John Keller, the same expert we mentioned, he described these deals as looking more like political horse trading than, straightforward bribery.
Political horse trading. What does that mean in this context?
Well, he pointed out that there's a potentially strong defense argument here, that Trump negotiated these arrangements in his official capacity as president for something he believed was valuable to the administration or the country, not necessarily just a personal benefit. If that's the case, it changes the legal analysis quite a bit compared to a direct personal bribe.
So acting as president versus acting for personal gain. That's the distinction.
That's a key legal distinction, yes. And it brings us back to that point made by Ryan Crosswell, another former public corruption prosecutor.
What did he say?
He said all criminal bribery arrangements are abuses of power, but not all abuses of power are criminal bribery arrangements.
Okay, say that again. All criminal bribery is abuse of power, but not all abuse of power is criminal bribery.
Exactly. It's subtle, but it's absolutely vital. Things can be an abuse of power, look really bad, ethically questionable.
But not cross that specific line into criminal bribery.
Precisely. That legal threshold is quite specific.
So, all right, if proving criminal bribery is so tough in these cases, what happens then?
Yeah.
Are there other ways to hold people or companies accountable?
Well, yeah. The lack of a likely criminal case doesn't mean it's the end of the story. Ryan Crosswell mentioned that, for example, if Democrats retake control of the House or Senate, maybe in 2026,
They could launch investigations.
they could certainly launch congressional inquiries into these deals, shine a brighter light on them. And Crosswell also highlighted something important, just the general lack of public understanding about how these kinds of arrangements even work.
Yeah, he said something like, all this is going on and the American people don't have any understanding.
Whether there are arrangements being made or how all this is working out, which points to a need for more transparency, regardless of criminality.
And it's not just potential government action, right? We're seeing other groups stepping in too.
That's true. Take the Freedom of the Press Foundation. They're actually a Paramount shareholder.
Okay.
And they've hired Abby Lowell, who's a pretty big name, a prominent Washington lawyer. They've stated they intend to file what's called a derivative lawsuit.
A derivative lawsuit. Remind us what that is.
Yeah, basically it's when shareholders sue on behalf of the company itself.
Yeah.
They argue that the company's directors messed up or harmed the company in this case, potentially by making this settlement payment.
Suing the directors for harming Paramount.
Exactly. And they've already demanded more information, specifically communications between Paramount's directors about this settlement. So that's another avenue of potential accountability through shareholder action.
Interesting.
And this really gets back to why understanding these distinctions, legal bribery versus political claims, different kinds of accountability, is so important for you listening right now.
How so?
Well, because you see these headlines constantly, right? Using really strong, loaded terms like bribery. Knowing what that actually means legally and how hard it is to prove helps you cut through the noise.
Helps you assess the information more critically.
Yeah.
Beyond just the initial shock value.
Precisely. Look beyond the surface accusation.
So let's try and bring this all together then.
Yeah.
What we've really unpacked here is this core tension, isn't it? You've got these really strong political accusations, words like bribery thrown around.
Often very loudly.
Right. And then on the other side, you have this very specific, often much, much higher legal bar for proving criminal intent, proving that explicit quid pro quo.
Couldn't have said it better. That legal definition of criminal bribery, it really is narrow. It demands that direct proof, that evidence of a negotiated tit-for-tat for some official action.
Yeah.
And like we've discussed, things can absolutely feel wrong or seem like an abuse of power.
Without actually meeting that specific legal test for criminal bribery.
Exactly. They're not always the same thing, even though they might overlap sometimes.
Yeah. And what this whole deep dive kind of reveals, I think, is just how different the frameworks are for looking at these things.
Yeah.
You got the political lens.
Which uses broader strokes, often focuses on appearances and implications.
And then you have the legal lens, which is much stricter, much more focused on specific evidence and definitions, and they don't always line up.
They often don't, and that mismatch is where a lot of the public confusion and sometimes the political accusations can stem from.
So the final thought, maybe, for you listening.
Yeah, perhaps the real challenge for all of us, especially now with so much information flying around, so many strong claims being made, is how do we navigate that? How do we tell the difference between something that's politically explosive, maybe ethically dubious, and something that actually crosses that line into provable criminal conduct? And maybe more importantly, how do these ongoing debates, these accusations and defenses, shape our trust in institutions and what accountability looks like going forward?